Hey guys, this is Bart coming to you from TST Industries in Florida with TST Garage. We have an S1000RR in the shop today. We'll be showing you how to install our new integrated tail lights for this bike. Now, this bike actually comes with the tail lighting all on the fender. Most people want to ditch the fender. The tail lighting also is very unrefined. When you look at this bike, it really inspires techiness, futuristic design lines coming through, organic, shark-like design language. I mean, it really deserves something more refined on the tail, and here at TST Industries, we design that kind of stuff. So what you see in front of me are the tail lighting elements that fit into the pockets here under the tail. They enable you to ditch the entire fender and that weird wonky lighting package and replace it with these ultra bright 3 emitters per side lighting system. So our lighting package is just one of the modules that we have for this bike. Obviously, when you ditch the fender, you ditch your mounting system for your license plate and also license plate light. So what we have in store for you guys is our Elite 1 fender eliminator system that is adjustable. You're able to adjust the hanging angle of your license plate, and also features a nice textured CNC machined aluminum black anodized closeout that closes all the gaps left behind from the removal of the fender. This is just one of the variants of the fender eliminator that we have. We do have a low mount fender eliminator that goes in this area. Some people do prefer that. And that fender eliminator also comes with the closeout and all the hardware necessary to mount this system together. We will not be showing you how to install the fender eliminator components in this particular video. We have separate videos that show you that installation, and we will have them linked in this video as well. So I just wanted to present what happens when you remove your fender and what needs to happen to remount your license plate and then also license plate light. We do have a plug and play version of our license plate light that works with all these components and goes directly into that bike with no wiring or splicing or any modification. That was really the motif that we were going for the design of all these parts. We decided it needs to be ultra bright, it needs to really look the biz and complement the body lines and design language of this bike. Obviously, this is what we do and this is what we're good at. So we came up with this system. You can see here, we have red anodized rings on this particular version. We do have different colors available to you guys. For the complete list of colors that are available right now, please see our website, tstindustries.com, navigate to the S1000RR product page, and you'll be presented with all the different options of equipment that we sell for it. So this is an installation video. I will show you guys how to install this on any bike, any S1000RR bike around the globe. It's the same setup for both the American and EU, Asian, Australian markets. Some other companies have different wiring schemes and things like that, different models that you have to purchase and pay attention. No worries here, same model fits everywhere around the world. It fits the same way. The only difference is how you connect the sub harness to the main lamp, and I will illustrate that in detail once we get in there. All right guys, without further ado, I'm really excited, probably you can tell, to start wrenching on this thing. And it's a simple installation. I promise it'll probably take you about 15 minutes unless you're sipping on a beer or talking to a buddy or both. Then it'll probably extend, but I think I can wrap this up in about 15 minutes. Let's go. Okay, step one will consist of removing the seat or seat cowl, whatever you have on your bike. And then we will need to remove this fairing and the opposite side fairing that mimics this one. This is actually very easy. We grab a T25 Torx wrench, remove these screws, and then we will need to pull up on each fairing in a certain sequence to dislodge the clips that are in several different locations here, and then it will come off. So I start at the bottom here. It's easy to get my finger under there, and I pull outboard, down and outboard, and that dislodges the clip that's in this location. Then I go to the front and basically outward and slightly up dislodges these clips here. And then we have 3 here, and in the aft section here there's a tiny little tab that goes into interference window here, so we have to be very careful not to pull up too high so that we don't snap it off. I typically use my fingers on these clips. You can use a polypropylene squeegee or something like that in there, but fingers actually work pretty well. And if we pull back on this, this tab disengages from its window and it's good to go. I'll reiterate how many clips we have. 1, 2, 3 going into these guys here, and then 1, 2 going into here, and that one that is the initial clip that comes out of here that permits the removal of everything else. I am going to repeat these steps on the other side of the bike. It's pretty simple. Now we have access to where all the wiring is for this bike. Now, the right signal and taillight connection is right here. Opposite side, similar location, but it also houses the license plate light wire. We will need to remove all the plugs, route the wires back, and then subsequently remove that fender. Okay, now we will identify the actual connector that needs to be disconnected. This particular bike has already been worked on, so I think the factory pre-installed wire management setup via probably zip ties, cable ties, is already off of it. There is some evidence of pinching of these wires, so this probably was zip tied. If your bike is still zip tied, you're gonna have to cut those zip ties off and then get this wire stretched out. I typically just use a small flathead screwdriver to unlock the locking mechanism of the 2 connectors coming together. I am gonna slip this off its keeper here to show you guys outside of the bike. You don't have to do that. You can just do it in there. I just want to illustrate what's going on here. Okay, this is the lighting side connector, and this is on the harness side. This metal tab is the means of holding it to the sub tray there. This is your lock. You pry up on that and pull that plug away, and it just disconnects. Simple as that. We route this back into the trunk compartment, and this I'm going to put back on where I found it. Now, again, you don't have to take this off the sub tray. This was just for illustration purposes. It could remain there. Let's hop on the other side. All right, on the left side of the bike here, similar setup. The cable routing guides management system has been taken off. If yours is still on, cut it off first. Get the wires and remove the connectors. Replace the opposite side connector if you've taken it off. If you've taken it off, replace it. If not, good to go. Route the wire back to trunk compartment. Identify the license plate light wire. This is only a 2 conductor wire here. This is its connector, its female connector from the harness is still hooked up to the sub tray, so this is pretty easy. We lift up on that tab, pull this down, that remains in place. Route these wires back to the trunk compartment, and now we have all 3 cable sets in the trunk compartment. We could get in here and using our T25, get the screws out. That remove the fender. Now, we are assuming here that you are removing your fender. If you're not removing your fender for this installation and you just want your lights in here and you're keeping all this stuff on the bike for some reason, you would skip this step. What we'll do is remove this and then replace it with our TST Industries fender eliminator. And for the actual steps of mounting the fender eliminator, you will have to watch our separate video on that subject. So BMW has really made this very, very simple. Okay, so BMW has made this removal very, very simple. There are grommets here with T-washers in them, and they house these screws. This is what I took off out of here. Once those are out, you basically just tab these out with this shape motion, and all of it comes off nice and easy. Now we are ready to get into the installation part. All right, at this point, we will need to remove this fastener here. This does use a T25 Torx again. This is the fastener that clamps this undertail piece to the subtray here via another panel fastener. So that panel fastener also has to be removed. Just slip it right off. And now we produce a hole that is left behind that is perfectly sized for our overmolded threaded stud that fits in there. And this is really the technology that permits no modifications during this installation. I'm going to repeat the fastener removal on the left side. And now we are ready to push our lamp through the hole and into the pocket. Now we just have to make sure that we have chosen the appropriate side. They only fit one way, so if it's looking like it's not gonna fit, choose the other one. Now we have 3 micro bullet connectors here. There is a reason why we used a sub-harness system. We wanted to make sure that you guys don't have to modify your bike, so we had to use separate small connectors here that will actually fit through this hole. Otherwise, we would have to make adjustments to this hole to fit the big plug. We didn't want to do that. This was our approach to make this as simple as possible. As you can see here, it just fits right in. On brand new bikes, I've actually noticed that this hole will be a little bit tight, and we want that. We want it to be pretty tight. Just push it right through. The thread will go through, no big deal. And then we drop our washer onto this, and then we need to get the nut through. Now the nut will require that you put 2 of these connectors through first, and then the remaining one, you will not be able to push all 3 through at the same time. You do want to be pretty gentle with this wiring. If it's too tight on you here, you can actually grab the wires and advance the sleeving. You can do that for the moment. We'll need to do that for our connection anyway. We want to expose several inches here. That makes it easy for us to actually get all the connections done and slip over the heat shrink tubing. But unfortunately, when you do that, the nut doesn't want to go through as easily. So you just have to milk it through, and still very, very simple concept, very simple to execute. Get our 6mm nut on here. This does have a nylon locking element within the nut. That's what prevents this thing from loosening while you're riding. So in essence, what we want to do is bottom this out and then give it maybe 1/8 of a turn to clamp these components together. Don't want to over tighten this connection. All right, I'm at the bottom here. Give it just a little bit more here, and we're looking good. Like I mentioned before, there were very specific reasons why we decided to make a sub-harness with this setup here. Obviously, we want to make sure you guys don't have to modify your bike, but we want to ensure plug and play connection. So this is the connector that gets replaced in the signal taillight connector that I showed you how to remove the tail lighting equipment from. And now, as soon as you power this up, this is hot, so we want to keep the bike off. And now we need to make our connection. For the US and American market bikes, this connection will be slightly different, but this is the only thing that differs between the two different installation. In the American markets, you have red lights only, and you basically have running light at a certain brightness, then it gets brighter for brake light, and then it interrupts the red to flash and make the signal light. In the other markets, so far we know that EU, Australia, and Asia have amber signals. This connection will be a little different because we have to actually connect the amber signal into the bike. So we've made that pretty simple. I'll show you how to do that. First thing we have to do is make sure that we have ample length here on the wires so that we can slip the included heat shrink tubing over. And like you see, I do. I will repeat the step one more time for you in case you didn't catch it before. Grab the wires. Don't grab the connectors, grab the wires. Squeeze them tight and advance this shielding until it does like a finger trap type thing here, and it will keep itself because there's enough friction in this heat shrink element. And now what we'll do first is the black. Black is the ground, and it's the only dissimilar sex direction, male being on this side, female being on this side. So you can only plug black into black. They fit on with friction, and then we advance this heat shrink over, and then we will shrink it down. Now, I don't like to heat shrink anything down yet. I want to test my connections, make sure all is good, because once you shrink this down, you have to cut it off, and then you have to go out and buy some more. So let's eliminate any possibility of a problem. All right, so now we have blue and gray on the bike side harness, and then we have red and yellow on the lamp harness. So for American markets, any bike model of this type that has only red lights, we will do blue to red, and then subsequently yellow to gray. I know some guys are gonna ask, in the American market, on the American bike, can we flip the connections like you have for the other markets? Can we enable the amber signals? At this point, this bike, these models do not have a circuit coming from the ECU, from the light control unit to enable the amber lighting. So we can't do anything about that at the moment. This is the only thing we can do. So now that we're all plugged in, we have to make sure that we're insulated. We are going to perform a test once the other lamp is on. If it's just one lamp on here, the bike does not turn on the lights. It just shows a fault code on the dash. So let's make sure that we're completely insulated and that your insulators do not fall below where they're actually separating the conductors. This is good for now. If you are installing this in an area where you do have amber signals, then again, black to black. And then this is where we have the difference. I'm going to display a graphic that'll help you guys with this. All right, for this instance, red is going to go into gray, and then we're going to have yellow going into blue. So that's the difference. Yellow to blue, red into gray. This is for EU, Australia, and Asia, and anywhere else where you have amber signals. Obviously, this won't light up on this particular bike, but this is the concept. I'm gonna have to reverse this, go back to the other side, mount the lamp, wire it up, and then we'll fire up the bike and make sure everything's working. On this side of the bike, all the steps are pretty much just repeated. So I'll just speed right through it. Now, as you can see, we have both lamps connected, so the tail light actually turned on. We have brake function on both, and signal function on both. Now we can actually rest knowing that our connections are made properly. Obviously, for you guys in the other markets that have the amber signals, when you do signal, these should turn amber for you. If they don't, you have a problem with your connections, go back over it, look at our graphic, and just follow that. Now, it'll be necessary to heat shrink these guys down. For that purpose, I have a heat gun. Heat gun works best, but that's not in your toolbox. Regular lighter will do just fine. Now, quick note here, make sure that the wires are actually fit as tight as they will possibly go. We want those connectors to be fully engaged, 100% of their length. And then we have to make sure that we are not too close to the conductors on each side, making sure that when we do heat shrink this down, it actually keeps this insulated for the duration of being mounted on the bike. So as you can see, I am shrinking this down with a lighter. You just have to pass it back and forth pretty quick. You don't want to burn it. But this is really the proper tool to do this with. It gets a nice, consistent heat amount over everything without having a flame. All right, that looks pretty good. Probably want to let this cool down a little bit. And then, since we've advanced this finger trap shape onto our shielding, we want to get it back towards here. Now, again, you do not want to strain any of the wires. So clamp the other side and lightly pull on it, milk out the slack. And now we have a nice setup here. I did plug it in outside this. I'm going to have to swap that around real quick. Our harness fits really nicely within the fairing here without needing too much coiling up or anything. You can just overlap it here. If you do choose to use a zip tie, you can go ahead and do that to mimic the OEM setup, but you can just S-fold it and get it in here, and the fairing will actually keep it in place without any issue. So either way you go, this is fine. I'm gonna hop on over to the right side, shrink these guys down, and then we'll proceed into reassembly of all the plastics. And after I've shrunk this down, once again, cool it off a little bit, advance our shielding onto the wires, milk out slack. Can't stress enough how important it is that you actually fix it here as you're milking this out. If you just pull against it, you may damage the wire connection to the circuit board that's inside that lamp. Please be careful with that. And again, I have my connection through the outside of these plastics here, so I'm going to reverse it, send it through the inside. Carefully only tugging on the connector components and not the wires. And once again, coil it up, S-fold it, and you can get it captive around a lot of this geometry, and that'll be fine. Or you could choose to zip tie it if you'd like. Now I'm actually going to go in the reverse order of disassembly here on this component, this tab having to fit in this little interference window first, and then down the line to all of these clip features. That's pretty much it on the clips. Grab that screw that came out of this location, get it back in there. Now this screw does have a shoulder, like you see here. This is supposed to engage with the hole in the painted plastic first So make sure you move this plastic around so that you're not clamping on the outer surface, but instead fitting that shoulder on this screw inside the plastic. That'll keep it concentric and keep it damage free. The left side of the bike is the same exact procedure, so I'm just gonna roll right through it. All right, you guys, as you can see, no sweat broken here. Installation was pretty simple. We went from this thing to this thing. Obviously, along the way, I did also install our low mount fender eliminator here on this bike. We do have a separate video for you in case you want to check that out. We also have a fender eliminator that mounts back here and mounts the license plate back here, adjusts to the angle that you prefer. This way, either one you want, we got you covered. I really do think that this lighting system provides a vast improvement over the look of this bike, over the OEM parts. If you guys agree, I think you should check out tstindustries.com, where you'll find this product, our fender eliminators, and a bunch of other products for this bike and other bikes you may have in your stable. I want to thank you for watching. Please hit subscribe if you like what we do, and ride safe. We'll see you in the next one.